crashes are tragic as it sometimes takes lives and leaves a trail of sorrow. The recent Nigerian Air Force Beechcraft accident is an example. Frequent occurrences like this leads to increase in aircraft insurance premium and ups the country's risk status. For the last 5 years, civil aviation in Nigeria has remained relatively safe, except for the helicopter crash of August 2020, which recorded 3 fatalities. With the frequency of air crashes in the Nigerian Air Force, the latest on the 21st of May, and totaling 3 in the last 5 months, what can military aviation learn from civil aviation safety standards? That's our focus. Plus, many European carriers stop overflights over Belarus, an aftermath of what has been described as a plane hijack in Minsk. Our background report is next. Airline travel is normally fast, convenient and safe. The environment in the cabin is usually welcoming. Flying would never take place without the big birds taking to the skies. The enormity of the aircraft type and design also comes with its own challenges. Just recently, an aero contractor's aircraft was forced to make an air return a few minutes after takeoff, owing to a bird sucked into the engine. Another MAX Air flight from the Aminu Kano International Airport, Kano, was also hit by a bird, which forced one of the 2 engine aircraft to malfunction, prompting the pilot to return to base. Both actions the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority described as life-saving and professional. Civil aviation in Nigeria has recorded 1 serious incident with fatalities in the last 5 years. And that's the Quorum helicopter crash of 2020. Beyond this, civil aviation in Nigeria remains relatively safe. In common parlance, aviation remains the safest means of transportation, but experts believe that maintenance is key to airworthy aircraft.
Maintenance is also key. Maintenance are specified. Air Force people do good maintenance. I give it to them. Because when I was running an airline, all the routine maintenance, your A, B, C, D, the people are good. They are excellent, all right? But if maintenance is not done, perhaps due to funding is another question. Spare parts should be procured, and if it's not procured, or you go to procure bogus parts because it's cheap, you are planning an accident. I think the Air Force must pay more attention, because if you look into history of accidents, majorly the highest percentage of accidents is traced to human error. So I'm not saying it is human error this time, but they need to pay more attention on human error. The pilots may be very, very used to the aircraft type, so problem of complacency may come in.
Meanwhile, military aviation in Nigeria is said to have lost 11 aircraft in 6 years, with many casualties. In the space of 3 months, a Nigerian Air Force Beechcraft King Air 350 aircraft crashed while returning to the Abuja airport after reporting engine failure en route Minna, Niger State. 7 personnel lost their lives. In April 2021, a NAV Alpha jet went missing while on an operation in the northeastern region of the country, while another Beechcraft aircraft crashed on the 21st of May, killing the Chief of Army Staff and 10 others. An expert believes it's time for the Air Force to ground the remaining Beechcraft in its fleet, pending investigation.
Within the span of 5 months in 1 year, should cause us some worry. Now 201, 202, 203, 204. Now the odd number ones have crashed. This were to be civil aviation, 202 and 204, especially if the aircraft are the same aircraft type, they will be grounded by now until the outcome of this accident report is out.
Air crashes are tragic, especially when fatalities are involved, and most times it diminishes the goodwill of the country's aviation industry. So it's important that there should be concerted efforts by civil aviation authorities, airlines, airspace managers, and others to ensure that the country retains a good safety record. Our guest on the program is the former managing director of Aero Contractors, Captain Ado Sanusi, a pilot with vast experience, among which is 1,000 hours on the Beechcraft 350. He shed some light on how civil aviation's crew resource management, among other initiatives, may help military aviation in Nigeria.
The civil aviation has learned a lot from the Air Force. And actually, the civil aviation was created from the Air Force. But over the years, the civil aviation have imbibed so many safety procedures that it is now very, very visible that the civil aviation has created an environment where it is safe. Take, for example, there is this what we call crew resource management, where you have to manage your crew inside the cockpit. In the military setting, it's totally different. The crew resource management might be totally absent. While in a civil setting, crew resource management is key to averting a lot of accidents. Crew resource management means how you handle your co-pilot, how the captain handles his co-pilot, and how the co-pilot handles his captain. And talking to each other to make sure that they get the best out of the situation they find themselves in, which in the military setting might not be there because the hierarchy and the regimentally form of the Air Force might not allow that to happen, especially in the transport section of the Air Force. When you bring Air Force pilots retired into civil, they lack that cockpit resource management, which is very vital in safe operation of a commercial airplane. Now, the transport section of the Air Force is very similar to running an airline because they are carrying VIPs, they are not into combat. So they must introduce those kind of things that have helped the civilians to improve their safety. In the States, they grounded their aircrafts too in the transport section to make sure that they look at the problem, advise, and then make sure that they actually reduced those chain of errors to the minimum when they had a lot of incidences and accidents. I would suggest that they should, especially for the transport section, VIP traveling with taking VIPs and all that, they should look at what the civil aviation is doing, the best practices they have been doing in transporting passengers, and just copy that for their transport section. You are taking top brass military officials, generals, and all that. You shouldn't have somebody who is inexperienced or who does not understand the procedures of carrying an airliner into the air. Well, I've flown the aircraft, I believe, I have a couple, I think maybe up to 1,000 hours on the Beechcraft 350. It's quite a safe and efficient airplane. It's an unforgiving airplane in single engine operations, meaning that you have to have a lot of experience to handle the aircraft in a single engine operation. The reason is very simple. It's a small airplane that carries 8 to 10 people and has powerful engines. So if one engine goes bad and you lose the auto feather conditions and you're not experienced, it's very difficult to control it. But it's quite safe. It's one of the turboprops that goes all the way to 35,000 feet. It's very fast and very efficient. But as I said, it's a good airplane. It's a good airplane, but it has, of course, as many airplanes do, have its own records of incidences and accidents. Some are due to pilot error, some are due to mechanic. I'm very, very glad when I heard that the military have invited AIB, Accident Investigation Bureau, to investigate. And you know, in the principle of investigation in civil aviation is not to lay blame, is to actually find the root cause, not the root cause of the incident or accident, and advise. This is the root cause, this is what we have to do. And I believe if we leave AIB, they will do a very good job and they will bring out very good safety recommendation for the Air Force.
Airlines and leasing firms are rushing to permanently convert old passenger jets into freighters, betting on a boom in e-commerce as the value of used planes tumbles amid the pandemic. This is now creating a huge opportunity for passenger-to-freighter conversion companies, including Singapore Technologies Engineering, Israel Aerospace Industries, and US-based aeronautical engineers. Aviation analytics firm Cirium expects the number of passenger-to-freighter conversions globally will rise by 36% to 90 planes in 2021 and to 109 planes in 2022.
Lately, I believe that the cause is the COVID-19, we figured out that the freighters kept the channel of life in the world, and there was increasing in the demand of conversion. Well, most of the economy now in the world is done by e-commerce.
The P2F conversions are a step beyond the cheaper temporary conversions many airlines have implemented during the pandemic, which remove passenger seats to carry more cargo. Permanent conversions are a financial bet that air freight demand, which was weak before COVID-19, will remain strong for years to come as shoppers turn to e-commerce. The airline industry estimates it will take until 2024 for passenger traffic to recover to 2019 levels.
About 50% of air freight is typically carried by passenger aircraft bellies. As a result of COVID, this capacity has reduced substantially overnight because of the grounding of the fleet, especially the international fleet. As a result, in the last few months, we have seen an increased interest in demand for dedicated freighters. A significant amount of inquiries have come in with regards to our Airbus 320, 321, and 330 passenger-to-freighter conversions. We expect the interest for dedicated freighters to continue to be strong in the coming years because of the decrease in capacity offered by passenger aircraft. In addition, in the existing freighter fleet, there are a number of older aircraft types that are being retired, including the A300 and the Boeing 757.
The conversion boom is also helping aviation maintenance, repair and overhaul groups offset some of the lost business from the decline in passenger flights. Boeing said cargo yields had risen by 40% through September because of the pandemic-related passenger disruptions, and it forecasts more than 60% of freighter deliveries over the next 20 years will be conversions rather than new wide-body freighters like the 777.
When Aviation this week returns, Belavia, which is the national carrier of Belarus, is stopped from entering Britain and France. That's on Newsflash after the break. Do join us again. The Federal Ministry of Aviation has announced that it has released 5 billion naira out of the 26 billion naira approved as COVID-19 intervention fund for the aviation industry. The Permanent Secretary, Federal Ministry of Aviation, Hassan Musa, who appeared before the House Committee on Aviation in Abuja, explained that the intervention fund was meant for all stakeholders in the sector, including airlines and car operators, while the balance was meant for the agencies and regulators, including the palliatives for salaries. In his presentation, the Director General of the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority, Musa Nuhu, stated that regulatory agencies needed more equipment to be installed in all the airports across the country. Nuhu also stated that any aircraft above 22 years would not be licensed to operate in Nigeria in line with the extant policy, just as he noted that adequate provision will be made to ensure adherence to aircraft maintenance rules. Now to the foreign scene. Belarus's national carrier Belavia has cancelled its flights to London and Paris after its air permits had been suspended by Britain and France. The company made an announcement saying that all the flights to London and Paris till October 31st, 2021 had been cancelled. Belarus lies on the flight path of routes within Europe and between Europe and Asia, and skirting Belarus will slow flights down and cost airlines money. The EU and the United States imposed several rounds of financial sanctions against Minsk last year, which had no effect on the behavior of authoritarian President Alexander Lukashenko, who withstood mass demonstrations against his rule after a disputed election. Lukashenko denies election fraud. Since the disputed vote, authorities rounded up thousands of his opponents, with all major opposition figures now in jail or exile. Still on Belarus, Air France has halted flights over Belarus early this week after EU leaders announced plans to buy European carriers from the country's airspace until further notice. Its Dutch stablemate KLM also stopped flying over Belarus on Monday, May the 24th. Now to Spain, where tourists from 10 non-EU countries deemed low risk have arrived the country early this week without having to present a negative PCR test after Spanish Prime Minister announced last week they could do so from May the 24th. Britain, Spain's largest market for foreign tourists, is included on the list, as well as Australia, New Zealand, Japan and Israel, among others. Tourist magnet Spain will let people from anywhere in the world who are vaccinated against COVID-19 enter the country from June 7, hoping to galvanize a recovery in the devastated tourism sector. Spain is the world's second most visited country before the pandemic, but in 2020, Spain plunged 80% in its tourism figures as restrictions brought leisure visits to a virtual standstill, leaving its beaches, palaces and hotels almost deserted. At Malaga Airport in southern Spain, a passenger who arrived from Yorkshire in England to spend time in his holiday home said people had become more confident about traveling.
Jasiri, Shuja and Tumaini only landed in Kenya just over 2 weeks ago. They are not humans, but are already playing an important role in curbing the spread of the country's coronavirus epidemic. The 3 glossy white robots made in China and donated by Japan and the United Nations Development Programme have been put to work at Nairobi's main international airport, keeping it disinfected and monitoring arrivals for signs of the virus.
Jasiri's role in this airport is to enhance the safety of international travel. And by that I mean its ability to, 1, take temperature, its ability to sanitize the environment around it, and more importantly for us and for the entire country is the fact that it relays confidence in the safety of air travel.
It can do screening of 200 passengers per minute. So it takes the temperature and records and store that data in one of the computers that we have.
As Jasiri, a Swahili word meaning brave, does his rounds, he sprays fine jets of sanitizer from containers attached to his sides and takes infrared pictures with a camera mounted on an extendable neck, while scanning hundreds of passengers per minute, and in tone flat English tells those not wearing face masks to put them on and those standing too close to others to respect social distancing rules.
These smart anti-robotic solutions are envisaged as a measure to mitigate the inherent risks by supporting some of the high-exposure functionalities like temperature screening, mask detection, automatic disinfection, and audio and video broadcasting and conferencing.
Meanwhile, the trio are also helping to curb the spread of an epidemic that has so far killed almost 1,800 and infected more than 100,000 in the East African nation and saving passengers time on arrival formalities.
This is one more example of how the future is going to look. The future is going towards contactless travel, is going towards automation, it's going towards a greater focus on what you call health security. And that's where the future is going to. We've just come from a COVID pandemic. You could call that the era of bio-insecurity, but now we're going to more health and safety and security combined and technology. I see that as a powerful force for the enhancement of air travel in the future.
Welcome to Hotel Sky.
From Kenya Airport to Hotel Sky in Johannesburg's wealthy Sandton district, where all staff adhere to strict COVID-19 protocols, wearing masks and physically distancing from guests as much as possible, except Lexi, Micah and Ariel. The three concierges could not breathe germs on you, even if you wanted them to. Robot hospitality is nothing new. Japanese hotels have been deploying them for years, and in 2015, Tokyo's Hena or Strange Hotel became the first to be fully staffed by droids.
We thought this is a great opportunity for us to do something that has never been done in Africa before. And so we sourced these robots from Sandbot, and then we started to program them and make them African. So yes, this is the very first hotel in Africa that has robots.
Hotel Sky, which launched this year, is the first in Africa to use automated attendants, a concept that could be controversial in a country with one of the world's worst jobless rates, 30.8%, according to President Cyril Ramaphosa's State of the Nation earlier address.
Robots will never ever replace people, never. Especially in a hospitality environment where, you know, we're humans that want people contact. We want that social interaction, and robots just can't do that. But what they can do is they can offer you a great concierge experience. They assist us with analytics in the hotel space, so they would be able to pick up with facial recognition, mood, it's called mood sentiment, to see whether people's facial expressions are happy or sad.
Lexi, Micah and Ariel deliver room service, provide travel information and can drag up to 300 kilograms of luggage from its marble-floored lobby to the rooms. If the hotel receives a guest at high risk from severe COVID-19 symptoms, the robots could be deployed instead of people as a precaution. CTRO Robotics, which supplies the droids, says this is the future.
As you've seen, this whole hotel is teched out, but another layer was to put some sort of automation. And how could we bring robotics into the space? So about a year and a bit ago, just over a year ago, Paul said, I want a robot that can do A and B and C and D, and I wanted to work within into this new flagship space that we're building, Hotel Sky in Sandton. And he kind of gave us this big vision and a brief, and he said, go for it and start building. And pretty much from that day, we started working, and we started pushing these about a few months ago, actually, into the hotel.
While the robots are at work, guests can opt to interact with more traditional staff if they don't want to lose that human touch.
And this is where we call it a day on the program. Thank you so much for staying with us. I'm Bukola Joe Okitsumbi. See you next time.